Good morning, folks. This is Corey Babka from the Marks Group, just doing our tips and tricks webinar for the month of June. This is actually covering our May tips on our website, our blog site. Today we're just going to go over the 3 tips for the Salesforce side. I do apologize. It's not going to be, this is going to be a very short one. It's going to be more of a descriptive tip, if anything like that, just to kind of show some of the ins and outs, and it truly is just the tips. I'm not going to be walking through anything because it deals with data loader and some triggers, and unfortunately I can't really talk to the points of showing you exactly the step-by-step. But I can give you examples as to why and what we need to be doing with this and what brought about these tips. The reason why I'm looking off to my left, I apologize, is I'm looking off to the screen itself that I will show you in a second. And what I'm going to do is share my screen and show you what we're talking about with the trigger. We're going to go over something with the trigger. We're going to go over the dates and times for the data loader, and we're going to go over the limitations with the task triggers and what brought about that trigger to be created. This is actually a real life situation that we went through, and trying to work with a client to get something to come in and show attachments and show a piece. So without further ado, might as well just get on right to it. I'm going to start with the easy one. And the easy one is actually the Salesforce dates and data loader. And this is actually a page right from our tips. This is the direct page itself. And actually just kind of goes over the dates and the data loader and what we're talking about. And I've actually witnessed this firsthand, gone through this a few times, and anyone that's done data loads inside of the page, when you're trying to do dates and you export it from somewhere, the next thing you know, you get some funky dates in Excel and it does it this way, and then the data loader doesn't come in correctly, and so you have to reformat the fields to show the date correctly. This is kind of like where we are right now, what we're discussing here. And what Prabha did here, which is our developer, and when she did a lot of the recent importing, she actually just made the tip here saying that when you're doing the data loader, you want to set the CSV file. So it doesn't necessarily mean the export. You don't have, honestly, I used to fiddle with the export, and I would mess with it and convert it to text and do all this so it came out correctly. All she did was she take the CSV file, open an Excel, and then she just set the format to be this way. Based on data loader, when you go into the settings, you just say use European date format, and that seems to take it. Even though it doesn't really seem to match up, it knows what it is, and I think it's because the European date format seems to be more of a standard that can be used. I know that when I've done date imports before, I've run into problems where I end up with the dates of the history items or the pending tasks or the open activities, whatever they are. It seems to be that they're hours off, like 12 hours off, or maybe a day off, or something like that. And that's where the European time and doing this format will actually help with that. Okay, so the next piece that I did want to just kind of go over, so that is, like I said, it's a fairly limited one, but I did want to just show you here. So the other tip that we're talking about is something that came into with another client, that they utilize the attachments. They utilize the Outlook integration with Salesforce, and they wanted to have a flag on the email. So when the emails come over from Outlook into Salesforce, and you have that integration and that movement of the emails, if there's an attachment on the email, we can open up the email and we can see the attachment either at the bottom, or I think we actually moved it just a little bit up top. Well, you can see it in the attachments area up top. But there's no flag. Okay, and so what we ended up doing was taking this client's records in this related list, and we put it that in their closed activities, whereas the subject line, the date of the email, and so on, there's a flag, there's a checkbox that says has attachments. Okay, doesn't matter how many, could be 1, could be 5, could be 15. But the problem that they were having was they were linking all of these emails. Okay, and when they're linking all these emails, what you end up with is, the same subject, same subject, same subject, and then they didn't know which one had the actual documents that they needed to reference. So they put this checkbox in there, okay? And so what we have is this checkbox. So if they look at this series of emails, reply, thanks, reply, thanks, reply, thanks, you'll actually see, or in real time, it was more like contract, reply contract, reply contract, reply contract. And the first one was the one that had the attachment. So they would open up that, they could view the attachment from there, and away we go. And that's where we are. We ran into a lot of problems with it though, because the email is kind of a custom activity and the task itself. So if I actually share my screen here, let me just show you what we're looking at here. So this tip here is it's the notes and attachments, they're standard objects. And even though we're putting attachments, we're importing attachments, to have that roll-up field, which you would use, or a formula field almost, that would say if there's an attachment on this child activity, bring it in and give me a checkbox, that's fine. But there's a problem in that the parent object, if the parent object is an activity, right here, okay, then the custom field list object can only be updated when there's a trigger. So there has to be an insert trigger to the parent object, and that's what our problem was. We couldn't do a roll-up, we couldn't do a formula field, we couldn't do anything that was actually giving us the ability to do it. So unfortunately, we had to go down the trigger, okay? If you actually Google this, you'll find that there's a lot of people, I don't want to say upset by this, but fairly annoyed that you can't do that much to the parent object of the activity. It just causes some issues there. So that's where we are. It is an existing limitation, right? So so what we do is we do the trigger on the attachment, right? And then what it does is it fires off, and then it fires off a checkbox and marks a box as true when it comes down to you know, the activity itself. In this case here, like for other excuse me, for other parent objects, the trigger is defined directly on the attachment, right? Which is doable, and that's fine. But in this case here, it's only when the parent is an activity that we have a problem. So going on, this is like tip number 2, but the truth of the matter is, it's actually right here. It's the tip number 1. It's the sample trigger. So here's the trigger. We've actually got this on the website, and you can see the website is actually it's blog.marksgroup.net. Okay, and you can go there and you can see this trigger. But this is the sample code on how to do it. So what we have is you can just copy and paste this trigger in there, and there's a trigger for it. But what you're seeing is it's actually on the document attached, which is the child object, okay, on the task, right? Or we do this is the trigger, I guess, on the task after insert. So it's doing it there, and it's listing the attachments, right? And so if there is an attachment ID where, you know, the parent ID are not equal to that, blah, 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 and then we get it, then you end up with this has attachment equals yes. And this has attachment _C is the custom field on the activity, on the task activity, okay, that actually shows up with that checkbox that true or false. So this is our custom field that we have being populated when the child object, which would be the attachment, is actually, there's at least one. And what does it marks that yes. And the next thing you know, we end up with a real-time situation where our history in Salesforce actually has that true box checked, and that's where we are. Okay, so it's just, again, if you need the actual text from this, blog.marksgroup.net, you can go there, you can, and right away you can navigate down, and it's in our May tips and tricks. You can see it down here. If I look, there's May trigger, data loader, all that. Okay, there's other products as well, Microsoft CRM, Zoho, whatever you're interested in. So that's what we have there. Like I said, I do apologize for this being kind of a short one. It is a smaller tips and tricks webinar. I'll do longer ones in the future where I actually walk you through screens in Salesforce. But this one was more of a technical one that we've noticed in the you know, in the last couple months doing our work. And this is what we do. These tips are all real time, because it's as we come upon the problems, we kind of create the tips so we can share them out with you. That being said, thanks for joining, thanks for watching. This will be available on YouTube later on. This is a live hangout on Google. Thanks to them for that. And that's where we are. So any other questions, you can always contact myself at Corey, C-O-R-E-Y, at marksgroup.net. Drop me a line, have any problems, any questions, anything else that we can help you with, and by all means, we can even elaborate a little bit more on these tips or any others and from our past tips. All right. Thank you. Everyone have a good day. Bye-bye now. Take care.